Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the newest pedal set from the guys at Thrustmaster, the T-LCM pedal set. Sporting a 100 kilogram load cell on the brake pedal and some solid looking pedal levers, this looks to be a properly done pedal set. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Now for our closer look segment at the Thrustmaster T-LCM pedal set. Alright, so Thrustmaster is touting it as their first load cell based pedal set, and it does sport the Heart Technologies, which is their Hall effect sensors for the throttle over here and the clutch, but we have a load cell over here in the brake, and the load cell is actually sitting at the bottom of our stack in there. See that? And we'll talk about the spring stack in a minute. But overall, it seems to be a pretty hefty little unit here. It comes in at 10 pounds and 14 ounces, which is very close to 11 pounds and 4.9 kilos, or we'll just call it 5 kilos. It seems to be a decent looking set. It's typical Thrustmaster injection molded plastic on the top here, this whole section. We have a little accent of aluminum diamond plate here, and it's a very thin piece, really thin. But it's got multiple screws all the way around supporting it. And I don't know if I'm going to have to take that off to do the look inside or not. I don't think so, because I was looking on the bottom and it looks like this whole piece will come off. Of course, we'll have to take these pedal pads off. Speaking of the pedals, these are actually pretty good looking, I think. And let me get this in the right light so you guys can see the textures on them. There we go. So it has that little hollow space out here, and it's got a brushed surface on the other parts of it. So this is kind of a smooth in here around where the screw holes are, and it's rough, or not rough, but kind of a satin finish on the other parts of it. Now what's curious is these pedals, the faces are steel, right? But the pedal arms back here, these pedal arm assemblies, are actually aluminum. So all that's aluminum. So nothing will stick there. Just falls off. But the pedal pads are actually steel. Now, the pedal pads, obviously we have the normal adjustments, and we'll get to the detailed adjustments later on in the adjustment section. And first off, these are the normal screws that we see in the Thrustmaster pedals, and we have the option to move it left or right by a set of holes, and the brake pedal will not go up or down. Now we can raise this throttle pedal because it's got another set of holes down here, and of course we can move it left and right, which is going to be the way the pedals are situated now in the centers. It looks like to me it's going to be plenty to be able to move these close enough to do a proper heel and toe. In fact, they're pretty close already, but I might move the brake pedal or throttle. I'm not sure. It depends on how it lines up once you have it in your cockpit. But yeah, I think that's plenty of adjustments for that. Speaking of adjustments, we also have default. We've got these pads behind here, these plastic pads, and they're like this. All right. And they've got that little structured honeycomb looking thing going on there to support the integrity of this, which usually works pretty well. And this is the default setup for the angle that the pedals are approaching your feet or presented to your feet. And this will obviously, if we put a bigger one in there, it's going to kick these pedal faces further forward. Now the pedal levers themselves do not adjust. It's just the shims that you can put in. Basically that's what these are, just shims. And of course they have the up and down so you don't get them confused which way you're supposed to be going. Now they're calling this the medium, so you can actually remove these and have it go backwards even further a little bit. That's not very much there as far as the width of it. I think at the widest point it's looks like 12 millimeters on these pads. And this pad right here looks like it's around almost 20 millimeter. Yeah, right at 20 millimeters. So that's a pretty good adjustment, I think, depending on, again, the angle that these pedals are sitting in your cockpit. I think the cockpit I'm going to be using is going to be sitting flat, so I might actually use these to bring them up straighter to my feet, depending on whether, you know, I feel like I need to do that or not. Right. Now, of course, the throttle is a spring throttle, and I don't see any adjustments for that. It is what it is when you get it, and the same thing over here with the clutch. When you press on the clutch, it is definitely stiffer than the throttle spring is, which is usually how you would want it. And yeah, this has got some some strength to it on the spring on this clutch. Now, there is no clutch feel to it. It's just a pedal that we're pressing. There's no, like a lot of pedals that I've reviewed in the past, when you push on them, it's like you're pushing against the pressure plate springs as you're trying to lift the pressure plate off the clutch. And yeah, then it kind of falls through. Well, that's just a steady linear stroke here, all right? So there's really just like pressing the throttle pedal, but it's stiffer. Right. Now, speaking of the levers back here, these look to be like cast aluminum bits. I'll give you a closer look here. And they've got some cutouts in there for keeping the strength, but losing some of the weight. Actually, I kind of like the industrial look of this set, the way they've done this, even though they are cast units. And we might get a better look at this once we get this cover off and do our look inside segment. And of course, the main attraction here is going to be this load cell and these springs here. Now, this spring setup, and we'll get to the adjustments when we get there, but I'm just going to go over it briefly. It has a black and what they're calling a gray spring on it, and it has a central chrome-plated spring here that always stays in. That's the preload spring, they're calling it. So we're going to have a little bit of movement before we're engaging the load cell. So you have that little bit of movement there. And there's adjustments for that. Again, we'll get there when we get there. But at default, this is a medium rate. So we have a black, what they're calling, they're rating these things with Fs. So this is a F20. The gray spring is an F15. So they're calling that medium. Now we also get a couple of red springs and special spacers for these red springs. And the red springs are actually what they're calling F30s. All right. So that's supposed to be the stiffest rather setup that you can get. We also have, if this is too heavy for you, a white spring. Whoop. A white spring, right? So this one is actually called an F10. So that's the lightest one. And I imagine we could put it either here or here. It looks like the height is the same as this black and gray one in here. But again, we'll get to the details when we get to the adjustments available in this pedal set. Now, what do you get in this pedal set? Well, let's see. First off, let me show you the connections on the back here, which is something a little curious here. You can see that, of course, we've got our usual serial number labels and things like that on there. But of course, we have the USB connector here, and we have the connector that goes to your Thrustmaster wheelbase for connectivity. But we also have over here a little button that you can press. And I was curious to see that. I guess it's some kind of a reset button, maybe some kind of a firmware upgrade or update button, because there's another thing on here I'm going to show you that was curious when I saw that too. So you press this button. Well, one's a light and one's a button, in case you guys didn't see that. Got a blue light, and the button's actually over here. There. Right. So there's actually a little access panel under here. All right, see this? And there's a plug, and look inside, well, I'll show you that. But there's actually an 8-pin plug in here. So yeah, there seems to be some kind of an upgrade path or something going on there from Thrustmaster, which actually I'm a little surprised to see. Speaking of the bottom, again, injection molded plastic. Well, I'll try to hold this up for you. And we have actually 5 mount points, and they're M6s. We got one here, one up here, of course, one over here, and one over here. But we also have another one in this little piece here, and it's a little bit more recessed than the threads that are in these pieces. And I'm not sure why that is. I guess if you need a more secure mount, or if you have a pattern where you can get like 2 of these in up here, and then you can get one of those, but you can't reach these 2 back here, or vice versa. It gives you a little bit more adjustability, a little bit more flexibility on what you can do as far as mounting it. And on the bottom here, you can see that we have these usual rubber feet that we get from Thrustmaster. And that's obviously to keep it from skidding around. I don't see any carpet type of pins that some pedal sets have that kind of stick, you can flip it out and it's got these pins in it so it grabs the carpet, but I don't see anything like that here. Again, speaking of these mounting points, there is a piece that you can get with this. It's called the T-LCM cockpit adapter. All right. Now what that is a couple of plates they give you, and they look like this. Steel plates, because my magnet is stuck to it. And what they do, I'm a little bit curious about this. They take these 2 mounting points and turn it into a single on both sides. So you got both plates installed. So you put your M6 screws, which they include, I'll show you in a minute, and attach both of these And what it does is takes these mounting points and turns it into a single mounting point here, which also is, remember, we still have access to this one here though, another M6 mount, if you can use it. But yeah, it's just in case you have a pedal tray that this is just not going to work without drilling it and you don't want to drill it. I mean, you can always drill things, right? Then you can put this in here and it'll make it easier to locate this whole pedal set on your pedal tray with just two holes over here, one here and one here. But then again, there's still a width issue there, right? So yeah, it's nice that they put that, it's available, put that in there. But yeah, I was curious to see that. Of course, I'm the kind of guy that always drills holes if I need them. I'm going to give you a quick look at the M6s that come with this. And you can see the little flat heads, and they will fit in the plates themselves like that, so they don't cause any interference. Right. And then you're going to have to source another 6mm screw for that, or bolt. All right. Let's see, what else we get here? We get some washers in a little bag. We get 5 of them. And those 5 washers are for adjusting our brake pedal as far as the preload. So the preload travel. This will either expand it or limit it. Not expand it, it limits the preload, right? So we put one in, it limits it a little bit. You put a whole stack of them in there. These are 5 pieces in here. Then it limits that preload or pre-travel, if you will, in case you don't like it the way it is from stock. Well, these things are noisy, aren't they? All right. Here we have some extra feet. Now, I was surprised to see this because it just seems like every pedal set I have that has this kind of thing on it, the glue-on kind of pads, they end up coming off. So it's nice that Thrustmaster actually gives us some extras. See? Pretty nice, huh? So if one comes off and it gets ruined, then we can always, got 3 spares of the round ones. We've got these 2 block ones here that I don't see on here installed anywhere, so, but you can put them anywhere you want, obviously. And we have 2 with holes in them that will replace these 2 up here that have access holes in them for screws when so we can actually take this apart. So yeah. And what else we got? We got a USB plug, or cable rather, and it has the USB-B, typical what we'll see. And of course that attaches back here onto this part of the pedal. And we have the USB-A, the normal thing we plug into our USB ports. Now this is nice. Again, you know, if you guys watch my videos, I love to see ferrite cores on cables, and there we have one right there. Yeah, always good to have one of those on there. Just one of my things, man. And then of course we have the normal, which doesn't have a ferrite core, by the way, the normal cable used for the proprietary Thrustmaster connections. These are called the RJ12s, I think. And they got that offset clip on them. So that would plug in to this hole and go up to your actual steering wheelbase from Thrustmaster. Now, I'm not sure if you still get the 16-bit that you get going USB. You go USB on this, connect it for a USB cable, and they're claiming a full 16-bit resolution. So that's nice. And I'm not sure, it doesn't really state if you'd still get that in the wheelbase. But yeah, typically you don't. But yeah, again, I don't have any information on that, so I can't say for sure. So overall, I'm kind of liking what I see here. I don't see any defects. I mean, it's the usual professional presentation by Thrustmaster products when you bring them out, but they still have that industrial punk look to them a little bit, which I personally do like. And I like that we finally get a load cell here. Isn't that great? So yeah, I'm can't wait to actually use this load cell. And by the way, they have a calibration software that we'll be seeing later on that you can use to calibrate the pedals, especially the brake pedal, because every time we change the springs in here, we're going to have to recalibrate the pedals. And that's just one of the routines that's part of this pedal set. But yeah, we'll get there when we get there. So again, overall, I don't see anything that I don't like about these. I do like that they're contactless sensors in here, and that obviously for longer life cycles. And yeah, having a load cell is always a plus when you get a brake pedal. If you guys have never used a load cell, you should be able to see a difference in your braking performance. Right, so what we'll do next is just get to the adjustments, which really are the pedal faces and the brake being the main thing that we're really interested in, I think. And yeah, we'll get to that next. Now I want to take a look at the adjustments on these pedals, and of course the brake will be the most involved one, and there's really not a lot of adjustment on the throttle or the clutch pedal over here. There's, yeah, unless there's something inside, but once we do a look inside, hopefully we'll be able to see that. But let's talk about the pedal faces. right? Or the pads, whatever you want to call them. And we'll just go ahead and take this one off. And then there are actually these two screws in here, and I'll show them as I take them out. And they are 2.5 millimeter hex heads, and they're probably 3 mil, I would imagine, on the thread. So I'll always take the bottom one out first so that it doesn't flip around on me as I'm taking stuff off. And these are pretty long screws. Wow. That's a long screw. But you can see it's a little flathead unit. And let's see, what is this on 3.8 mil? All right. I need to get a left-handed set of calipers for my videos, I think. All right, there we go. So almost 4 mil, so it's M4. And it's pretty long, actually. What is this? Like a 40 mil, 30 mil? 37.28 mils on the length. So that's a very long screw. And let's go ahead and pull this one off. All right. And the pad's going to come with it, so I'm kind of grabbing it on the back here. There we go. Pull that out. So now we have two screws we don't want to lose. And here we have the pedal face, and we can get a closer look at what this, how this is made. Now it is steel. We've already determined that in the closer look, but there you go. And let's see how thick this puppy is. And I'm going to grab it. Okay, it doesn't matter where you grab it, actually. I'll show you that in a minute. So 2.5 mil thick steel. I'm sure that's plenty. Yeah, you're not going to bend this. We have the countersunk holes there, so that our flathead screws will not impede the sliding of our shoe across the top. And it has a little offset in here. See this groove here? I thought it was just something that was milled into the 2.5 mil thickness, but if you look, you can see it's actually the same thickness, but it's just kind of offset. So we started out with, and you can see it's got a little groove on the back, the way they made this design. So we started off with a thicker plate, and then that's how it was milled out. And I like that these are curved, have a little bit of a radius to them there, so that when you're using the accelerated pedal, your shoe sole can, or sock, whatever you're using, will slide easily over them. And it's got that brushed look on it too. All right, here is the default pedal spacer, and this determines the angle of attack of your pedal faceplate. Now we can actually just put this back on like this, or like this, depending. We have some holes here. Obviously we can move it up and down a little bit, and I'll probably be moving this up. I'm thinking, well, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see how it works out for me. But yeah, this would give you an attack angle that's more leaned back than if we have this in here. So there's obviously this little wedge here is going to kick it towards us. And if you saw a closer look, we have these, which are 20 millimeter wide, these being 10 mil, and they will fit on here and kick the face even further up, which I'm probably going to end up doing with this throttle, because when I'm pressing my brake, I'm going to have a firm set. I'm probably going to have the stiffest setting, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I'm probably going to, I would think, want this forward a little bit. But then again, maybe not. We'll have to see how it works out. But easy enough to adjust this, and I'll go ahead and leave this off for now because we don't need it anymore. It also gives us a little better look at the lever itself. And you can see this is actually got a satin finish to it where they've ground down these levers, and they certainly look like cast units. I would definitely call those a cast unit. You can see the little marks in there in the holes, or the indentations there, that you usually see in a cast. In other words, not milled. All right. So yeah, there we have it. There's no other adjustment on this pedal or the clutch pedal over here, even though it has a stiffer spring. We might be able to switch the springs out if you want a stiffer spring over here and don't care about your clutch. I have to take a look at that, but until we get this cover off, I won't be able to see that. Right. Now let's get to the fun part, the clutch. Or rather, not the clutch. That's not the fun part. The brake pedal. We have a load cell in here, and it is a 100 kilogram load cell. So yeah, I'm surprised it's not like an 80 or a 75 or something like that. I am surprised that it's 100 kilograms. So that's a pretty good load you can put on this pedal. Now, changing the pedal out is a very simple affair. It's simply pulling this. You see this has got a pin in it, right? And there's a slot system on the side. I don't know if you guys can see that little slot on the bottom there. But the whole idea here is to just take this spring assembly, and I kind of push up with the pedal, and my thumbs I'll pull down. I get these two fingers underneath the back of this pedal lever, and just kind of push down like this, and it will all come out. Or you can just press it with your finger like that, and it all just leans out. And of course, this is going to want to drop, so be advised of that, right? It doesn't really want to stay up. I'm not sure why they didn't let it go a little bit further, but whatever. So now we're going to take the pieces off. First piece we have, stay right there, is this. And of course, that's the piece that fits up into the groove, and it's got a little grommet on the bottom of it that helps center the spring on the rods here, or sitting on the rod. And this pedal here, you can see the groove a little bit better, but let me get these springs off and we'll take a look at it. So put that aside. And here we have the gray spring. Now this gray spring is rated at an F15. They're not giving you the pounds of the springs on these. They have their own system called F, whatever the number is, dash whatever the number is. I'm guessing they're calling that force, so how much force you need. So maybe it's 15 pounds, I don't know. So a gray is a F15, right? Then we have this guy here. Now this is a spacer, and it has a groove around it. See that groove around the top? See how it's kind of got this little edge sticking out? That's so it fits in this guy, this chrome plated spring. And this is the preload spring. It's pretty soft. So yeah, that stays in your configuration no matter what you do. And this fits in there like that to help keep everything centered, right? And then your spring, the gray spring, will sit on top of that. And you can see these little grooves here. And the reason I'm showing you these guys is they're spacing out the spring hole here properly, so it doesn't wiggle around much. Still a little bit of play, but you want a little bit of lashing in these assemblies. So these are actually wider than the red ones we're going to be looking at in a minute, and we'll take a closer look at that as I do that. Right, so we pull all that off, and then we're going to pull another spacer off in the springs. Go ahead and just pull the spring off. And they caution you not to mess with the load cell. Do not pull that off, although I might pull it off. So again, we have another spacer on the bottom that goes on the bottom of our stack for the chrome spring, right, like that. So that this spring, the black spring, which also is the same diameter hole as our gray spring, and this black spring is an F20, which means it's even stiffer, and it feels stiffer when you squish it. And that, again, helps space everything, keep everything straight, right? Just like that. Simple and kind of greasy, which is good. You don't want no grease on your pedals. Now, what we're going to do is, I'm going to put these here so you guys can keep track of what I'm doing here. Spacers, springs, black and gray. So we get these guys. We get a white spring, which I'm not going to use because the white spring is pretty squishy, right? And this is called F10, so maybe 10 pounds. So if you think that the default is too stiff for you, then just throw your white one in. You can put it on the bottom or the top, it looks like to me. And the white one has the same diameter as the gray and black, so we can use the same spacer. Fits right in there like that, right? Now, the ones I'm probably going to be using, which I'm going to actually put on here while we're talking about it, are these red ones. And these are called F30s. And these are definitely stiffer. So we have two of these, right? So you can actually mix and match. You don't have to use the red ones together. You can use the red one, the gray one, the black one, white one, whatever you want to do. So I do like the fact that Thrustmaster has thought this through to where there's going to be a lot of different people out there who use these that don't want the same kind of pedal pressures. So again, it's nice you can mix and match, but the red ones are thinner in diameter in the center. See how that works? By a lot. So they've given us some more spacers over here, and the spacers have a red rim around them, so you can't get them mixed up in case you're not looking down there. And if you look at that one compared to the black one, and that's why I was showing you these grooves here, how they're kind of sticking out further than they are here. Well, let's try that again, Barry. Over here, it's kind of greasy, so that's why they're getting away from me. So this one doesn't have those notches, see, like this one does. So, of course, it's there to accommodate the thinner diameter of these springs. So I would go ahead and, very simple, pull my lever out of the way, slide one of these down here like this. Then I would slide this, and it's going to be upside down, right? Right on top of that. And now it's got it centered on this shaft like it should be. And this piece here is able to accommodate this. Now, I would put this on here like this. Now, I'm going to stop here and do two things. I'm going to talk about the shims, and I'm going to walk around here and get my other spacers because I won't be able to put it together without it. Bear with me. The spacers for the preload. And that's what these washers are. This is where you would take a moment and put these spacers in. Oh, here. And all they're really going to do is keep the preload spring from squishing too much as far as further down, because it's going to stop. We'll have this other red one on here because I'm using red. It could be the black one, it doesn't matter. And I'd slide that down here. So when these two guys come together, right, they're squishing that spring all the way down until these ends meet. All right, it goes like that actually, until these two flat ends meet, right? And that's when it stops. So if I put more washers in between here like this, say I put 3, or you can put all 5 if you want, it's going to stop that travel sooner. So I have less preload. In fact, when you have 5 of them in there, there's like no preload. The spring is not compressing hardly at all, right? So yeah, that would be no preload at all, which I kind of want a little bit of travel. So I'm going to take a couple of these off, put this back on, and then see what I've got for travel. So I'll press down. Now you can see I'm traveling again. See how that works? And I kind of like that. It gives me just a little bit of play before I start engaging the load cell. So I'm going to leave it like that. Of course, I might change it later on, but right now we'll just leave it. And I'll go ahead and put my red spring back on. And I'm pretty much done, right? So it's very easy to do this. In fact, it's going to be easy when it's mounted, which is also a plus, to be able to make these changes. Now I'm going to put the bar assembly with the little washer that's all welded together and the bushing back on top. And now it's going to be a little bit more difficult, though, to get it in. Number one, we don't have as much preload movement. Number two, we've got the 2 red stiffest springs there are. So I'm curious to see just how hard this is going to be to get it in. I don't think it'll be too bad. Again, I'm just going to lift up with my fingers back here, and I'm going to press with my thumbs on the top. And yeah, just kind of see if I can get it to snap in there. There you go. And be careful that you don't get your finger stuck in there in that snapping action. That would not be a good thing. Right. So let's get this out of the way. See what I got here. Of course, testing with my hand is nothing like testing with my foot. But yeah, that is definitely. And I still have a little bit of preload here where the spring is moving. And yeah, not much though. So I might take a couple more of those washers out. But yeah, this is definitely more difficult to push on this thing. So there you have it. Again, we can mix this with a black spring down here, or a white one, or whatever you want to do. The gray one, more spacers, less spacers. So I do like the way they came up with this as far as the adjustability of it. It's functional, it's easy to do, it's easy to reach, I think. Once you have this mounted, of course that depends on your cockpit. If it's way under a desk somewhere, not that easy, but easy enough to slide it out and get to it. And it'll let you play around with what you want to do. Now, one thing I want to be mindful of, every time you change these springs in the setup on here in spacers, you have to go back into the calibration software and recalibrate. Not a big deal, and we'll take a look at that software once we have it mounted over there on the rig and we're using them. So yeah, I think that's about it for the adjustability or adjustments. And yeah, 100 kilogram load cell, you know, that should be plenty for most, I think. And I really don't see any problem with this right now. I like the way they've done this. They thought this through pretty well, I think. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, especially at the price point. You know, a $200 pedal set is what they're supposed to be coming out at. So yeah, so far I'm pretty impressed at especially at the price point, what we can do here. Now, what we'll do next is what we love to do, and that is take the cover off and take a look inside and see what's going on all inside of here. Now for our look inside segment. Now I've already taken the 14 screws that it takes to get this cover off, and it comes off as one piece. We've already removed the pedal faces. Kind of sticky bottom on this, which is a good thing. And we're just going to lift it up. Comes straight off of here. And there we have it. Again, just your usual injection molded kind of interface here. We're going to stick it out of the way. Doesn't get damaged. All right. So here we have it. Now, one thing I noticed about this, as soon as I took this off or had it off, is it has a ballast in it. See this container here? And it's connected by a bunch of screws that go all the way around the perimeter here. It's got a screw on top, so they filled this up with sand or something heavy that allows this pedal set to be kind of balanced out. It feels a little bit front heavy, but yeah, if we just had these metal pedals in here, these levers, then it would be heavy the other way. But it's nice that they did that, and it kind of just weighs out pretty well. It balances really well, actually. And yeah, I was surprised that that's how they did it. So if it's too heavy, you can always take some out. You just unscrew this, or you have to take this off first because it won't come off because it's kind of tucked into a little plastic piece in there. Right, so that's kind of cool. Now let's look at the pedals themselves. And here we can have a good look at the springs and everything as far as the assemblies go. And yeah, pretty clean looking in there. And again, this is a Hall effects kind of sensor on the throttle and on the clutch. And we can see our load cell down there on the bottom of the brake pedal. And I haven't been running the dual red springs as I've been driving this set. I've been driving it already, and I usually do that before I get this out of the way, before I actually take them apart, because I want to make sure they work, right? I'd be kind of silly to take it apart if I haven't tried them yet. Right, so we have a circuit board in here, and this is the main circuit board. And we can see that the load cell actually has a wire coming out from here. I'll turn it that way so you can see it. Kind of wraps around there and plugs into our board. And of course we have the throttle and the clutch also plugged into this board. And there'll be a low cell amplifier on the circuit. Not going to pull that off. I don't feel like we need to pull that off. And to get a better look at how these pedals are working on the spring captures and the Hall effects, you can barely see the circuit board that's under here. All right, not very good. So we're gonna have to take that pedal off. Now to do that, I need to, first off, I'm gonna take the spring and take that off so I can take the pressure that's on the pedal off. And simple thing here, I'm just gonna take my fingers, kind of pull down on the spring here, and yeah, kind of wiggle it out of the way. And there it is. Easy enough. And it's got some grease on one end. You can see all the grease there. Get a focus. I'll put that over here out of the way. And it has a little ball that it rests on down here to capture it, and also the pedal itself does. But I'm going to pull this pedal off to show you that. And to do that, I'm just going to take the rod out that it's actually running on. This rod right here. Now the brake has one too, and so obviously the brake has one and the clutch pedal has one. But the brake has these clips on them. See the clips? On both sides, so that it can't get loose. But the throttle and the clutch just have the rods in there. Interesting. So I'm imagining that the housing itself that we just took off has a facility inside of it that keeps that from it ever coming out, so you don't have to worry about it. But here, on the brake pedal, it's going to get most of the force. I suppose they figured they wanted to put some clips on there. Just guessing anyway. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this off, and I'm going to use, let's see, let me just go ahead and use one of these little punches here. And hopefully I can just pull this out, or push it out, and without any dramas here. So let's go ahead and I'll kind of pick up on this, make sure this is free. Kind of push on, there we go. Yeah, okay. So we'll put this back up. Won't need you anymore. And I'm just going to kind of pull it out as I hold the pedal, obviously. There we go. Now there's let me show you this first. All right, so there's the pin that rides on it. Very highly polished. It does have some grease on it, which is good. You want it to have some grease. And we'll put that out of the way here so it doesn't run away from me. And I want to go ahead and pull the pedal out, but as I pull it out, I'm going to pull it towards me. And the reason I'm doing that is there's a small set of wires, or a little pair of wires here that are soldered to the circuit board. I think there's some kind of a ground deal, so I'm going to actually pull away from those. I obviously don't want to push them back and bend them or anything. And I'll show you that in a minute. All right, so here's the pedal, and we have our bushings here, which are lubed up, and these just come out like this. Imagine, there we go. There's your bushing. And hopefully they won't fall out. Well, I'll tell you what, let me just take them out. Because you know they're going to fall out if I don't. Right. All right. So again, this is an aluminum cast bit. And you can tell it's cast by those little, see those little circles in there? That's where the casting comes out at when they're doing the cast. And yeah, it's all one piece. It looks like it's, they've got some grinding on it, which you usually do to a cast unit when it comes out, because it's got little fringes everywhere. And this is the little ball or half ball that holds the spring in place. So that's where the spring will ride, and it retains the spring at the same time. Now we have here, it looks like a magnet. Let's see, is that a magnet? Put my little thing on here. Oh yeah, that's a pretty strong magnet actually. So of course this is the magnet that the Hall sensor is going to use to sense the magnetic field increasing and decreasing so that it can figure out where the position of the accelerator pedal is, right? So we've got some nuts on the back here. Well, that's showing up. The lights are so bright. There we go. And they're pressed into the aluminum. So obviously that's how we capture the screws when we're putting our face plates on, or the pedal plates, pedal pads, what do you want to call them. Right. Anything else you want to see here? No, I don't think so. All right, so I'm going to show you how this is done. And I kind of like this. Let's see, where's my little pointer thing? I'm actually going to go over here to my close-up to show you this, because I think you'll be able to see it a little better. And try to hold on to it without dropping it. That would help. Let's go over here like this. Okay. Right. So here's these little two wires that are sticking off the board, right? And it says shield underneath it there. In fact, I'll flip it around so you guys can see it a little better. Get up here, we can see it. All right, get a little focus. There we go. So these two little wires here, and you can see it says shield underneath there. All right. So there's some kind of a ground that are riding on the shaft of the aluminum pedal itself. I imagine that's what that is. And here we have the little chip right in the middle there, that little black chip. And that's what's sensing the magnetic field and creating the Hall sensor, or heart technology, as Thrustmaster calls it, so that it can sense where that pedal is and adjust accordingly. Now we also have a wire coming off this board, and you can see there's only two Phillips screws, one here and one down here, holding this on, and we have a wire coming off of it on the side there. And I'm pretty sure if we follow the wire, it goes back over here and goes into the board, right? It looks like it's going to be pretty easy to replace this. A couple of screws, unplug it from the board over there, and yeah, put the new one in, plug it in, and you're ready to go. Pretty simple. Let's go back to our bigger camera here. And I like simple because that means it's going to be easy to fix if we ever need to. And of course, I'm not sure if Thrustmaster would actually send you a circuit board if one went out, but yeah, there's always hope, right? So yeah, not much else to see here the way this is working. And yeah, it's when I was using these pedals, and now that I'm looking at them, I can actually discuss a little more and figure out what was going on. There was a little bit of softness to it at full, you know, when you're doing heel and toe and you're slapping them around, they felt kind of a little bit soft. But you know, a $200 price point and having steel rods mounted into this plastic like this injected molded plastic, then that's kind of the reason why I was feeling what I was feeling. And again, it wasn't detrimental. I was able to drive fine with it, never had a problem. But yeah, it just didn't feel substantial under my foot at all. But then again, at a $200 price point, I wouldn't really expect it to. But I am pleased that they've used these all metal pedal levers here. That is pretty cool. And even though they are cast, but they certainly get the job done. I couldn't imagine anyone ever breaking one of these. In fact, you'll probably break the plastic over here before anything goes wrong with one of these pedals, I would imagine. All right. So anything else we want to talk about? Well, we can look at the board a little closer. Not much to see there. And one more thing I wanted to show you here on the back. And I was told you about that in the closer look, or maybe when I was doing the adjustments. But there was a door back here. See this door? Where is it? Right over here. See that space in there? There's a plug in here. There's an 8-pin plug. I'll go down to my close-up and see if we can get a better look at it. It'll focus. There we go. 8-pin plug. So that looks to be maybe something that we can actually program the board with later on. Right. Or maybe that's how they program it at the factory. If they did, I'm not sure why they would leave an access door there. So maybe there's some upgrade path or something there. Who knows? But it's there, right? So we have to see it. We have to look at it. All right. So I guess that's going to wrap up our look inside. I think that shows you everything that's going on here. And yeah, we'll just get to our next segment. All right. So now we have the Thrustmaster calibration tool open. And you can see the pedals over here. And this is the factory calibration. In other words, this is the default as you open the application for the first time. And you can see that if I move the throttle pedal, I have a green bar over there, which is raw values. And I have a purple, which is the final values. You can see they're kind of all jibing right now. And we have the brake over here. And yeah, so that's 100% on the load cell. I think that's what that 100%, I would assume that the load cell can't give you any more. But if I press, it can. See, so we got to get these synced up. And last but not least, over here at the clutch, you can see they're pretty synced up anyways, similar to the throttle. So what I do is, first off, the brake force. How much brake pedal tension do I need, or force, to max it out? All right, so there it is there. And that's equals 70 right now. And you can actually change this by the slider. And when you put the arrows up there, it says adjust the brake force on the brake pedal to your liking. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and run this baby up to 100, see what happens. So that means I'm going to have to press harder. Imagine. Let's try that. I'm at 84 there. Let me go back. Of course, you have to slide it. You can't click on the little field there. So let's go back to 70. And try it again. Yeah, it's definitely easier to get it that high. So if I go to 100, it becomes more difficult to press the load cell to get it to go that high. I'm going to leave it at 100 because I'm thinking, yeah, I'll be needing that for my heel and toe. Yeah. So we'll leave it there. Now also we have these zones here. On the brake pedal, there's only one zone. If you see a little pop-up there, adjust the dead zone, obviously, at the beginning of the travel. So this is good for if you leave your foot on the brake, which sometimes I do when I'm driving. You can see there's a little bit, get that out of there. Go away. There we go. So there's a little bit of green in there. And that means that I'm applying the brakes if I don't have that dead zone in there. So I usually just kind of rest the weight of my foot on the pedal, and you can see how much green's there. So I don't need a 5.0. I'm going to actually come down to about 2.3. Yeah, that should be about right. Now, in iRacing, in some games, you can set that individually too. I don't know, I might raise it up just a hair. It's something you got to play with to get it right, or get it to where you think it's right for your foot weight and the angle you're approaching the pedal at and things like that. Okay. And yes, it takes me a lot of force to get that thing up there. That's what I want. So let's go over to the throttle, and it also has the dead zones in it. And it looks like the green raw value is just a little bit behind the final value because of the dead zone. See where the dead zone is? Let's see if I bring that up. Yeah, see? The final value goes down when I bring that up. So now I have to press it all the way to get 100%. Okay, that explains it. And if I want a dead zone up there, you can see I'm at 100% still. Yeah, okay. So I bring it up there. All right, so you can always go back to factory calibration if you want to. In fact, if I wanted to apply this, I just hit the apply button, and you see it goes away, right? So there's nothing up here to make it come back. It says to save your settings, please unplug your device. But it saves it anyway. I'm going to close it and bring it back up. So let's go ahead and bring it back up. It goes in my other window, of course. I guess we were right about there. And you can see the values are still there. So once you hit apply, it does save it. But it says to unplug and save, so I'm not sure what's up with that. But you can see my clutch has got a little green in there already, and I'm not even touching. Well, maybe not. So again, easy enough to set our dead zones here. And this would not be for like iRacing, it'd be for other games, like I said, of course, Project Cars, things like that, where you can set, it's going to read this information because it's Windows based, and iRacing is going to have its own deal. And even with it, there we go. It takes a lot of pressure to get that thing up to 100 on the brake. All right, so that's what we wanted, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay. I might bring that, yeah, that's good enough. I could bring it down a little bit, maybe 90. And see what that does. 90, give me 90, there it is. So now, yeah, it's easier to get to 100 now. I might just leave it there. Again, this is something that's completely subjective, something you have to play with to get the settings to where you feel the pedal feels right. And in some games, you can actually tweak that further, obviously, depending on which game you're in. So I'm going to hit apply. Before I do that, let me check my clutch one more time. Let's see if I'm actually doing some heel and toe. Yeah, I don't need that dead zone up there. But you know what? I'm going to leave it at 90 because I might miss a little bit on my clutch and not get it all the way down when I'm shifting. and that would make me miss the shift. So if I had a little dead zone up there and I get like right there, then I'm in. If I'm under it, which I'm, yeah, easy to get it pressed that far. Again, something you can tweak to your own desires. Right. So I guess that's about it. We'll go ahead and apply this. And yeah, that's it. Pretty simple configuration utility. Just remember every time that we change our spring tension or the different springs that are in this brake pedal that we're going to need to come back in here and recalibrate with this tool. So yeah, it's nice that they actually have this tool now and something that we can use to get everything tweaked the way we want to. So yeah, let's go ahead and drive these things. So here we are at Sebring in the Lotus 79 in notorious turn 17 once again. And I'm using some heel and toe techniques here for this as far as this part of the test goes. And I like to do this. I like to stomp on the pedals and slap them around a little bit while I'm doing some of this heel and toe. It really lets me feel what they're capable of doing. And of course, it will show any weaknesses under those conditions pretty quickly instead of just using a regular left foot braking technique that really what we use mostly these days anyway. But here's a good test for them, and that's why I do this. The brake felt good. The load cell, 100 kilograms. I mean, that's probably all the pressure most people could ever want. Of course, there's some people who want more. And yeah, I would still like to see some more spring pressure here, even though it is kind of stiff, but underfoot it still feels a little soft for me, even though I'm still able to modulate it properly and get some good braking and trail braking in the corner and entry points on the corner, good braking. But the thing is that this whole pedal set kind of displays a softness to it, even when you have it pushed all the way down. It seems like you can keep pushing it a little bit, and it just feels like there's some flex in here, especially under these kinds of circumstances or conditions, if you will. And I think I located where this flex is, and it's in the, if you saw the look inside, you would see that the pedal levers here are pivoting on some steel rods or pins, and those pins are captured in the injection molded plastic that makes up the base of this pedal set. So instead of having a metal bracket for the hinge part where that pin is, it's plastic holding it, and I think that's where, I would assume that's where we're getting the soft feel that I get out of the pedals, even though I feel like they should be like dead stop when I pushed them all the way down. But again, we can adapt to anything, and so I was able to adapt to this. As you can see, I had really no problems doing some heel and toe here. And then we went over to the ring, got in the Ferrari 488 GT3 just to do some left foot braking technique. And again here, the same kind of thing was displayed as far as the softness or it seemed like some kind of a flex going on there. But yeah, overall, they got the job done. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I wasn't totally surprised by the construction method they used on these pedals, especially at the price point of $200. And you've already got these nice cast aluminum levers that, you know, again, I think they will probably outlast any other part of this pedal set. And like I said, they got the job done. And it's just some of the things that I notice when I'm driving these pedals hard, and always do. I really don't take it easy. I don't care if it's a $200 or a $2,000 set of pedals. I always like to thrash them thoroughly, just so I can find if there's any weaknesses or soft points in them. And yeah, I was able to find that in this pedal set. But again, I would like to see metal bases where those hinge points are. And yeah, as far as everything else goes, I was able to adjust the pedal faces fine. As you can see, I moved the throttle pedal face pedal over towards the brake and did not move the brake over, because with the kind of shoes I was using, that was plenty for me to be able to brake with my left foot, or rather right foot, and then slap the accelerator when I was doing that heel and toe technique you saw previously. So overall, again, at the $200 price point, you know, we're getting a 100 kilogram load cell here. We do have a lot of different feels we can put in the brake with the different springs they give us, so I like the adjustability range right out of the box on this pedal set. And of course, we have these Hall sensors that are, instead of potentiometers, that are under the throttle and clutch pedal, which would give us an impression of a long life cycle on these units. And of course, they're less susceptible to dust and lint from your socks if you drive with socks, which, by the way, you could drive with socks on these pedals, no problem, if that's what you wanted to do. Right, so yeah, we'll just go ahead and get on to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Thrustmaster T-LCM pedal set. You know, it's nice to see high-volume sim racing hardware manufacturers getting on board with better technologies in their products. Although it is a little late to the party here, Thrustmaster is finally implementing a load cell in their brake pedal. Rated for 100 kilograms of pressure, ensures that most will have ample stiffness in their brake pedal stroke, if that's what they want. Now, I do like the way the brake pedal's force adjustment is done here. It is easy to change out the springs, and there is enough variation in strength here to satisfy most. The Hall effect sensors on the throttle and clutch pedals would indicate long life cycles on those particular parts, and they'll be less susceptible to dust and lint-created issues, unlike the potentiometers used on a lot of pedals. The cast aluminum pedal levers are a bit rough-looking on the finish, but do lend themselves to an industrial look that, well, I kind of like. And being all aluminum, they should outlast any other component in this set. The pedal faces have enough adjustments in angle and location that I did not have a problem getting them into the position that I liked. Now, of course, the real litmus test here is driving a pedal set, and that's where it's going to matter the most. And I was able to get them dialed in to where I was comfortable. I like to use a heel and toe technique when I test pedal sets to see how they respond to the added pressure when you compare that to the usual left foot braking used in most racing cars these days. While they did allow me to carry on with the job of making shifts when I needed them to, there was also some flex detected here when I was leaning on them pretty heavy. It seemed to me that they just never felt completely solid underfoot. And once I was doing the look inside segment here, I believe I found part of the reason. The shafts that are used in the pedal levers pivot points are supported by the injection molded plastic used for the base in this pedal set. Now, I would have liked to have seen some metal bases used here for the pedal levers. This to support the steel rods used in the pivot point itself. But at this price point, I was not totally surprised to see this type of construction. Now, I never had an issue while using the pedals, but I feel like this is an area that could use some improvement. Overall, at $200 price point, this pedal set does offer some good features. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.